Welcome back. Before we get into today's lesson, I'd like to review what we've learned so far. One of the first things we learned is that creativity requires self-awareness, and one of the best ways to enhance our self-awareness is to write. Writing is an excellent way to get our thoughts out of our head onto a page so we can sort through them and make sense out of them. That's what self-reflection is, and self-reflection is essential for creativity. Now, I've also made a case that you should learn to draw. Drawing increases your observational skills, and it gives you a creative craft with which to work. Remember, drawing is the foundation of most visual arts. So learning to draw as soon as you can will really give you a head start in all kinds of other creative endeavors. And the observational skills you'll develop while drawing will make you more aware of the world around you. Being more aware and more observant of the world around you will give you more raw material to work with when you're trying to be creative. And the more you have to work with, the more likely you are to make creative connections between things. We've also learned that being creative requires us to see everything in terms of meaning and possibility. If creativity is all about making meaningful connections, then seeing things as meaningful and significant is an essential first step. And finally, we've learned the difference between divergent thinking, which means to come up with many ideas or solutions, and convergent thinking, which means to narrow down to find one correct solution. We've learned that to be creative, we need to temporarily turn off our convergent thinking so we can solely engage in divergent thinking. Now, many people think that learning to be creative is something they're going to do through an art project or in the art studio, or they think it's a step-by-step process. And as I'm sure you're learning, that could not be further from the truth. Becoming more creative is a way of life. To become more creative, we need to learn to live our life differently. Now, becoming creative is also not something that's going to be immediately measurable. It's not as if you'll finish this course and like a light switch turning on, you'll suddenly become creative. It takes time to develop creativity. But my goal in this course is to give you all of the raw materials of creativity so you can come at it from numerous different ways. Writing, drawing, self-reflection, and changing the way you live and think are all essential tools for becoming more creative. Now, in this lesson, you're going to learn ways you can change the way you think by making changes in your daily life. And I want to say this again, creativity is not something you're just going to learn to do in the studio or while you're making art. Creativity is a way of thinking and being in every aspect of life. And one of the most powerful ways to do this is to increase your openness to experience. Openness to experience is a well-known personality trait that is highly correlated with creativity. So let's define openness to experience. Openness to experience is the drive to explore one's inner and outer worlds and a receptiveness to new ideas and information. Openness to experience is one of the strongest predictors of creativity. Now, people who have a high level of openness to experience exhibit some predictable qualities. They tend to be curious. They tend to be perceptive, self-aware, and intellectual. They explore their own inner worlds of ideas, emotions, sensations, and fantasies. Outwardly, they are constantly seeking new information. And when they come across new information, they try and make sense out of it. They are open to new and unusual experiences, and they cultivate a curiosity toward the strange and unfamiliar. They explore new things and constantly seek out new information that confounds them and challenges how they're thinking. They constantly explore new ideas, seek out new information, and look for things that challenge their current beliefs. The goal of this lesson is to increase your openness to experience, and thereby grow your creativity. So to do this, first, I want to talk about latent inhibition. Latent inhibition is a technical term that refers to how easy it is for something to acquire meaning or significance. So let me explain this. A person with normal levels of latent inhibition is able to tune out any information that isn't immediately relevant to what they're doing. They tune out things that are unimportant in the moment. So for example, right now, I'm not aware of the carpet fibers, I'm not aware of the texture of the ceiling, I have no idea how many pieces of paper I have on my desk. Now, all of these are pieces of information that if I look around, I can clearly see, but they are irrelevant to the task at hand, so I ignore them. Now, for most people, the vast majority of information that their eyes and ears are taking in fall into the category of irrelevant information. So people with normal levels of latent inhibition only pay attention to what's immediately relevant to the task at hand. However, someone with a lower level of latent inhibition is paying much more attention to the information that surrounds them. People with lower levels of latent inhibition tend to be more aware of sounds, they're more aware of light, they're more aware of textures and small details in their environments. Now, having lower levels of latent inhibition can be overwhelming at times, but it is essential for creativity. Now, one of the reasons I've been encouraging you to learn to draw is because drawing is an excellent way to lower your levels of latent inhibition. Learning to draw really allows us to focus on details that we weren't paying attention to before. It opens the world back up. Over and over, students who have just started learning to draw will come to me and tell me that their world looks completely different, even after just a few weeks of drawing. These drawing students report that colors look brighter. They see far more detail. The world seems more interesting and dramatic. They're suddenly aware of light and shadow on objects, and they tend to see the world with a much greater sense of fascination and beauty. When we're editing out most of the information from our environment, we don't see as much. And when we don't see as much, we don't have as much raw material to make connections with. Learning to draw opens the world back up and allows us to see everything with a sense of wonder, curiosity, and beauty. Lowering our latent inhibition through drawing infuses everything with a sense of wonder and creative possibility. Now, hopefully you're already committed to learning to draw, so now I'm going to introduce some other ways for you to lower your latent inhibition and increase your openness to experience. Now, one of the best pieces of advice I can give you if you want to become more creative is to become a maverick. A maverick is an unorthodox and independent-minded person. A maverick thinks differently from most people. If creativity is about making new and meaningful connections, then we're not going to make new connections by thinking in the way we always have, or by the way everybody else thinks. So how do you become a maverick? Well, here are some strategies that I use and that are proven to make you a more independent-minded person. First, you want to disrupt your habits. Now, disrupting your daily habits is a great way to lower your latent inhibition and increase your openness to experience. Now, by disrupting your daily habits, you'll be able to see your mundane, everyday environment in a new way. Simple things like brushing your teeth or note-taking with your non-dominant hand will start to open your mind back up. It forces you to re-examine the way you normally do things and really think about the act of brushing your teeth or taking notes or whatever these mundane activities may be. I know this sounds strange, but I will regularly say empty the dishwasher with one hand, rearrange the furniture in my house, walk upstairs backwards, and a wide range of other things. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Even something as simple as changing the order of your shower routine will help lower your levels of latent inhibition and increase your openness to experience. Again, the goal is to take these mundane routines that you don't even think about and force yourself to re-examine them. So again, by disrupting your daily habits, it will make the world seem new again. It will make the world unfamiliar, and that is the place where creativity comes from. Now, this next suggestion people really struggle with. So I'm not saying you have to do this, but I am saying it's an excellent way to increase levels of creativity. Challenge your beliefs. Now, most people have a very strong set of beliefs. They could be religious, they could be political, they could be moral, they could be familial. But most people have a very strong set of beliefs that they live by, and they tend not to question. Now, having a strong set of beliefs may be meaningful and useful in everyday life. But remember, having rigid beliefs and ways of doing things kills our capacity to be creative. Now, I'm certainly not advocating for any sort of moral relativism or pushing you toward any specific set of beliefs. I'm also not suggesting that you need to give up your current beliefs. But I am suggesting that you want to seek to understand and maybe even learn something new from a set of beliefs that you don't subscribe to. Now, there are many different ways you can challenge your beliefs, and I'm going to share with you how I do it. Now, I absolutely love to learn new things, and particularly through reading. But I have a rule. Anytime I read a book that comes from a particular religious or political point of view, I obligate myself to read a book from an opposing viewpoint. And when I do this, when I read a book that challenges what I already believe, I don't do it in order to find its flaws. I try and open my mind to see if there's something I can agree with or learn, even if it's something small. Now, I've been amazed that since I started doing this, how much deeper and richer my beliefs have become. I've added new layers that I never thought possible. Challenging the way you think and being open to learning from unorthodox sources is an excellent way, again, to open your mind up, to take in new information and to change the way you think. And remember, creativity is all about finding new ways to think. And again, I want to reiterate, you don't have to do this. I don't want you to feel obligated to do anything you're not comfortable doing. But I am saying that creativity requires new ways of thinking. You want to be able to challenge the way you think, to push your brain into unknown territory. And challenging your beliefs is an excellent way to do that. So if you're not up for challenging your beliefs, you can increase your openness to experience by simply learning new things. And this could come in many forms. You could start to play an instrument. You could start a new hobby like gardening or writing. You could take up cooking. Anything that challenges your brain in a new way. Now, as a creative person, learning a different form of creative expression is particularly effective. So for example, if you're a dancer, try painting. If you're interested in fashion design, try writing and drawing a comic book. This kind of cross-creative training is an excellent way to get you to think about whatever medium you're interested in a whole new way. So as you probably know, I do a lot of drawing, but I also play the cello. Now, I'm terrible at the cello, but the reason I play it is because it allows me to think about drawing in a completely different way. I'm always asking myself, how is playing the cello similar to drawing? What can I learn from music and apply to drawing? Now, learning to play the cello, even though I'm really bad at it, has enhanced my idea of what drawing is and can be. But in addition to that, it also opens up music in a whole new way. Learning to play the cello has increased my openness to experience because I can hear music differently now. Because I know how hard it is to play the cello, it makes me appreciate music in a whole new way because I know how hard music is to make. So I want to sum up what we've learned here. So to be creative, we need to seek out new information, and in particular, new information that may challenge our beliefs. We want to disrupt our daily habits, and we want to learn new things. This will force our minds to think in new and different ways. And remember, being creative is all about thinking in new and different ways so we can make new connections between things. So with all of this in mind, let's switch gears and start your project. So for today's project, you'll need a pair of scissors and you'll need the 6 drawings that you've done for this course so far. You'll need your 3 drawings of inanimate objects, your 2 drawings of human body parts, and your 1 drawing of an animal part. You're going to cut out all of your drawings. The goal here is to cleanly separate the drawing entirely from the white of the paper. Now I do this by first cutting away the excess white paper. Once I've got a rough cut, I do a more detailed cut around the contour. The goal here is to not have any white showing at the edges of your drawings. Now to do this, you'll need to cut very slowly when you're at the contour. Now for some objects, it might be difficult to figure out exactly where to cut. So for example, the eye that I've drawn does not have a clear contour edge like some of the other objects. So my advice here is to try and visualize what it might look like if you cut it in different ways. If it helps, you can even draw a light line around the area you want to cut out. But it's important to remember that there's no right or wrong answer here. This is a creativity project and there's no wrong way to do it. So don't worry that you might mess up. Now there may be some areas that are hard to cut out with the scissors. Now for these areas, I switch to a utility knife or an X-Acto blade. Now using a blade is optional, but cutting with a blade works great for interior shapes that you'll need to remove. So for example, here you can see me cutting out the white space inside the loop of this shoelace. Or here you can see me cutting out the inside of the magnifying glass because I want to be able to see through it. Once you're done, you should have 6 objects all cleanly cut out. Once you're done with your project, I will see you back here for the next lesson where you're going to design some changes you can make in your life in order to increase your openness to experience.